This is a pink quill plant. You see them quite a lot in garden centres, and usually they have a massive pink cone that comes out of the middle. But once that plant has flowered, it's the one and only time in its whole life it's ever going to flower, and that's it. Now, the leaves around the outside, the longer ones, are the original plant, and once it's flowered, it sends up what's called pups, and they are smaller copies of the plant. And my plant has 2 pups from when it first flowered. I'm just going to get a side view and you can see them. This one here is one, and this one here is the other. Now, of these 2 pups, a new cone will come out of the centre of each of them, and the cycle will repeat itself. Once the pink cone comes up, it produces about 5 purple flowers over the course of a couple of weeks, and each flower lasts only a couple of days. Then it dies and another flower comes on the cone. Once all the flowers have finished, the cone actually dies once the seeds have been made. Now, this plant can self-pollinate, but it does need cross-pollination between the flowers. So you know, most are kept as houseplants or inside in conservatories, etc., greenhouses. So there's not a lot of cross-pollination going on. Mine did produce seeds, but the seeds did not grow. So I'm going to show you some tips on caring for them today, and I'm going to repot this guy because he's got no hope of growing up and producing more in this tiny little 5 centimetre pot. Now, these guys are actually air plants, or part of the air plant family, I should say. And once we have a look at the roots, it is actually in a compost, but it doesn't need to be. These guys can survive on bits of wood or without any compost at all. But for the greenhouse and houseplant market, they put them in a little bit of soil. Now, this soil doesn't really need any nutrients because they are a type of air plant. So we're going to be using today some peat moss in here because very few nutrients in it and a little bit of perlite, and the mixture is really light and airy. You don't want anything heavy on the roots, weighing it down. You want them nice and light. So I'm going to remove this soil with a bit of water. If you want to separate the pups, you can do. I don't see the need for me to do it because I'm putting them in a bigger pot with the hope of growing them on and making more and more pups in the one pot, so I get multiple flowers. But if you wanted to, you could split them down the middle there and grow the 2 pups separately. I'm just going to rinse off the roots now with some water. Unfortunately, I can't do it on camera because I've got one pair of hands to film or do that. But I'll wash it off, show you what it looks like, and then we'll repot it into its new home. So here we are on the roots. Now, if you're looking closely, you can see the very original plant was grown in one of those little bags. I hate those things. I'm just going to try and pull it apart a little bit so the roots can grow out a little bit easier. But despite that, it has grown some lovely roots since I got it. And sorry, my hands are a bit messy, but if you look in here, you can see the older plant around the outside, which is the dark green, and in centre, the purpley colour is the young pup. Now, around the outside, we do have a few brown leaves, nothing to be too worried about, just the ends there. And so I'm going to repot it into this bigger pot so it has space and room to grow on, and hopefully we will get some more flowers from it. And here he is, all repotted. I've only watered him a little bit because they really hate soggy roots, these plants. I'm going to have a little talk about the care of these guys and what they need. Now, I keep mine in the bathroom and absolutely loves it there. It likes the humid environment. It doesn't really take a lot from the soil. It mainly takes it from the air, being an air plant. And because the bathroom's humid, I don't even have to spray this guy. He just most of the time is this lovely lush green colour, and that's because he's picking up water from the air. Sometimes I forget to water this guy for weeks and weeks, and look at him, he's happy as he can be, and he's taking water from the air. Now they do appreciate, especially if you're not keeping them in the bathroom, they appreciate being sprayed about 3 times a week. It helps keep their leaves healthy. They come from like a wet forest environment, so they're used to like the rain coming down, and they actually grow on pieces of wood or trees where they come from. So they're used to the rain coming down and getting their water that way. Now, if you want to fertilise them, it's best not to put a soluble fertiliser in a bowl into a jug and then water them that way. It's best to actually buy a spray-on fertiliser, which you can spray on the leaves. Don't put ordinary fertiliser in a bottle and spray it, because you're likely to kill off all your leaves. So that's the best thing for that. In winter they keep their leaves, they still are green, and they like indirect light. In our bathroom, the glass is it's like got a pattern to it, so the bright sun is distorted as it comes through, and that's what they like, a bit of indirect light. Nothing too bright, because again they come from deep forests, jungly forests, where there's a lot of rain and it's quite humid. Now, unfortunately, my guy doesn't have flowers on at the moment. The pups are about 6 months old. So I guess a little bit longer. They're about the third of the size of the parent plant was when it flowered. So I guess they've got a bit more growing to do yet before they're going to flower. But I have got some clips which I'll show you of what they look like when they flower. You can get much bigger ones than this. Mine's relatively small, but a lot on the market today are quite small when you see them in the garden centres. It's nice to have a houseplant that actually flowers in quite the dramatic fashion that this guy does. So they are worth a go, and generally you can pick one up which includes the postage for about £10. In a garden centre you're likely to be paying a little bit, well, around the same, even though you're not paying for the postage, literally because it's a garden centre and they're charging more for the plants. So, you know, either way, I bought this guy off eBay and I've had him about 2 years now. So that whole process from he was in flower when I bought him. Well, he had the cone up and then he flowered after I bought him. And then to produce the pups it's been about 2 years into its cycle so far, and you can see the original plant. He's on his last days, he's produced his babies, and that's that. When we had the seeds did not germinate and flower, but to be honest, I was so surprised to actually find the seeds that I didn't really research. I just put them on some wet kitchen towel in a Ziploc bag to see if they would germinate, and they didn't. But I'm sure there is a better way to germinate them, and I will do a video if it flowers again on trying to germinate those seeds. It might be that those seeds were never pollinated because it was up in the bathroom, but you never know. You know, it's always worth a go with seeds, I feel. But that's the pink quill plant. It's quite a striking plant in flower. It's not like other air plants. It does do well in soil, you know, even though I haven't used a nutrient rich soil, it does do well in soil. And it's fairly easy to look after. It thrives on neglect, so if you're a person that forgets to water it, this plant might be for you. I really suggest giving them a go. Really easy. And as always, as I always say, don't be afraid to repot your plants. I know a lot of people get scared, especially if it's something unusual that they don't know on repotting, but this is so easy. This took me about 2 minutes to just repot and put into a bigger pot.